Do you yearn for travel that involves outdoor adventure and learning? I do. I also have a passion for all things farming and agriculture. I've traveled to exotic jungles to learn about growing chocolate. I even once owned my own organic vegetable and sunflower farm. And now I'm planning my journey back to agriculture. Agri-tourism, defined as travel that involves some type of agricultural experience. Agri-tourism is all about entertaining. But the marketing strategist in me knows that at its core, agritourism is really about educating, and education affects change. My future farm needs to deliver a profound experience to all of its visitors. It needs to educate people about food, health, and climate. Join me to learn from experienced agritourism farmers and entrepreneurs and help me build my future farm strategy. And who knows, maybe one day soon you'll find yourself in a tropical jungle cutting open cacao pods with a machete, or savoring an outdoor plant-to-plate community dinner with 100 guests at a farm in Illinois. So let's tap into the agri-tourist in you. I just speak quickly. Just say your name so I know it's coming through, right?
Shelby Watson-Hampton.
Okay, I love that name. That's a great name.
Thank you. I think so.
So what were we doing tonight? This was amazing.
Well, you started it when you called and said you were coming through town and you wanted to get together.
I think I'm crazy. Some people think I'm crazy. Like, what are you doing?
No, you're in great company because most people think I'm crazy too. Because we're extroverted and we're people and we like to do things out of the box. So yeah, we decided you're going to come and hang out and we're going to have wine on the porch and that we might as well make it a thing, right? Because the more the merrier.
Yes. I mean, we had talked about having wine on your porch when I interviewed you many moons ago, my third interview. And I remember saying I wanted to come down here and connect. And when I say that to people, I do mean it. It may not be right away, but I do mean it when I say I want to go someplace. So, you know, I knew I was coming through Maryland on my way to South Carolina for a wedding. And I was just like, who do I want to connect with or who can I, especially, you know, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Shelby, you know? So when you said you were available on this date, I was so excited. I was just so excited.
I got so excited. And by the way, sidebar, I tell people like, don't invite me places unless you really mean it because I will show up. I will come.
I'm that person too.
Especially if it's somewhere really cool. I'm like, yes, I do want to come. No, it was perfect. I looked at my calendar and was like, save the date. I literally wrote like hang out with Jen. And then we decided that, okay, we're going to make it a thing. And we're like, well, what can we theme it around? All right. So obviously the podcast, because you're a podcaster and you're traveling through and you feature people in agritourism. And I was like, okay, wonderful. I have people I can invite for that. And we do a book club here at the winery. And the book club has different themes. So we're a little unique. We don't pick one book and then read it. We pick a theme and anybody can bring a book that fits the theme. So that way it doesn't have to be something you read this week. It can be an older book or it can be on your Kindle or it can be a library book. And so I was like, all right, so you're in the agricultural world and I am too. So let's do a book club theme about like rural books, like books that are based in the countryside or based on a farm or a ranch or characters that are from the country or something like that. And I said, we'll do a happy hour. And so we'll do wine and a cheese board and we'll make it a book club. And then you can interview people for the podcast and we'll make it like a whole thing.
And that's what we did. And I met some amazing women in all different facets of agriculture. And, you know, I didn't like just the horseback riding with the vineyard. I was just like, oh my God, like there's such interesting people and such unique backgrounds too. Like everyone just has such unique backgrounds to them.
How many interviews did you do tonight?
I don't know. I lost count actually.
I think it's probably an even dozen.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm probably gonna have to break this into two, which is awesome. But it was great. It was such a wonderful, and your wine is amazing. And this place,
thank you.
I have to say, when you know, I had a vision from when you told me about it, and you see pictures on the internet, but when you start driving up your driveway. It is magical here. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
The setting. I'd want my wedding here. You know, I wish I lived closer because I'd love to hang out here, and it's a beautiful property.
Well, I
Really
have a
is.
spare room at the house, so
Yeah,
you're welcome.
well,
And it's not that far of a drive. You're welcome to come down.
But thank you so much for setting this up and for taking the time. I know you're a busy, busy lady, but hopefully we'll be doing some more of these in the future.
Yeah, well, thank you for having it, because this was my excuse for a girls' night out.
Excellent.
So it was perfect. So yay, this was fun. And yeah, listeners, stay tuned, because I think we might have some more collaborations in store in the future.
Good. Okay, thank you, Shelby.
Thank you.
This is Jen Ross, your Agri-Tourist podcast host. So next are a series of mini podcast interviews with some inspirational farm women, many of whom are currently based out of Maryland. But how they got here and from where they came varies significantly. We are splitting this podcast into 2 parts so you can savor the inspiration that each woman brings to the forefront. Such diversity, such perseverance, such innovation, and such insightful thoughts. First up is Susan Watson-White, co-owner of Robin Hill Farm and Vineyards and Shelby's aunt. During Shelby's interview in podcast 4, we spoke a lot about her aunt and the leadership role she took on at the farm when her father, Shelby's grandfather, suddenly passed away. Be prepared, though. She's a powerhouse, and I think she speaks faster than I do. Enjoy my conversation with Susan Watson-White. So tell me this was a family farm. I know Shelby told me about, what was your involvement in the family farm? Well,
sure.
So
my mom and dad purchased the farm in 1955 and started our family business, Robin Hill Farm. And we started out as tobacco farmers, and we added hog operations. We had 400 to 500 head of hog on the property at a time. We also did agri-tourism since the late 1960s, where we grew pumpkins and invited children here for their educational farm tours. And then we added a nursery. We had 100 acres of shade and ornamental trees and 20 acres of shrubbery. And that's what we were doing. We had gotten out of the tobacco business. We took the tobacco buyout. The nursery was at a point where it was very successful, so we got out of the hog business. And then my father passed away unexpectedly in 2005, which is very devastating for our family. And I took over the family business because I was working with my dad. And we stayed in the nursery business for another 5 years. And then Mom decided that she didn't want to do that anymore. She knew, she didn't want to do it without Dad, and she knew that it was tough on me. So she decided to divide the family farm between the 4 siblings. And she wanted to watch us do, what we wanted to do on the farm while she was still living. So that's what she did. So I got 70 acres. And then I was like, oh, I need an income. And it was very important to me to keep the farm in agriculture, because this is the foundation of our family. And our whole family still lives here on the farm. Our brothers and sisters, they farm their land as well. And most of our children and grandchildren live here on the farm. So I feel very blessed.
So, I have 2 questions for you. One, what were your strengths in growing up on this farm, and obviously the different iterations of the farm? What were your strengths? Like, where did you feel you fit in to the farm?
I really loved the hog business. I loved working with animals as opposed to being in the nursery. But when you live on the farm, you do you do what you have to do. We had to diversify throughout the years. And then when it came time for me to diversify, we did a lot of research with the ag agencies. And they said, well, the soil that's good for tobacco is also good for grapes. Why don't you grow a vineyard? Maybe one day you could have a winery. And we're like, oh, that sounds pretty good.
Did it sound good? Or were you, because when I look at the vineyards on Long Island, I'm like, and knowing, I just did vegetable farming and sunflowers, and I look at that and I'm like, that's an intense operation.
I'll be honest with you. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. How's that? Because it's so funny, because everybody thinks, oh, doesn't that sound romantic? Growing a vineyard and having a winery. Well, guess what? It's a lot of work, and it's probably just as much as work as tobacco. Maybe not as gummy, but it's still a lot of work. So like I said, I knew I had to keep the farm. I had to get an income, and they also said, barn weddings are trending. You've got lots of infrastructure here, lots of barns. Why don't you turn one of your barns into a wedding barn? So at that time, my niece Shelby and her husband Wade, they had just graduated from college, and they with ag degrees, and they also wanted to help me keep the farm in agriculture. So I didn't do it alone. We did the research together, and we went to our very first Maryland Grape Growers Association meeting, and we were trying to learn, is this something we want to do? And the first day that I was there, somebody said, Susan, I want you to meet this man. His name is Bob White. And I looked at this guy and I said, right? Well, a bobwhite is a bird. It's quail. And that is its mating call. And I was just being funny. But what I didn't realize is that that was the mating call, and that was my husband. That's how I met my husband, Bob White.
That is a great story.
So we hired him to be our vineyard consultant. He had a 13-acre vineyard. He's been making wine since he was a teenager. We hit it off. We fell in love. We got married in the vineyard. He sold his vineyard and came down here to be our winemaker. So he became the fourth partner in the
I love
winery.
that story. And I saw you. You seem so in love. So
I am.
So
I am.
nice.
He is the man of my dreams. He's my favorite husband and favorite winemaker.
I love it.
He's got job security.
I love it. I really love it. So what is your favorite, like, what makes you excited about this business? Like, what aspect of it do you love the most?
I think as far as a winery, it's the people. I love having people come here every weekend. I mean, it's, we work my husband and I laugh, we work 8 days a week.
But does it really work?
I guess my dad would say, if you enjoy what you do, you never work a day in your life. So I feel blessed, and we have a passion for what we do. So, I'd work 10 days a week if I needed to. But I love having the people here every weekend. It's, I love people. So I love working with people, and I think that's a perk of having the winery.
Excellent. Well, I am so grateful to be here.
And then who doesn't like to drink wine?
Well, of course. And I know we were talking before about the weddings. I mean, you want to talk about that quote that you shared? Someone had said about...
Oh, that was so funny. Yeah, someone put a review, and they were like, oh my gosh, I went to a wedding. It was beautiful. I loved it. And she goes, because, sometimes when you see something like you say, oh, a barn wedding, what is this dirty jank ass? What am I getting myself into this crap? And she said when she came here, she realized how, beautiful it was and what a beautiful time she had. So she was shocked that coming to a barn wedding, she didn't know what to expect, but she was thoroughly
this property is
impressed.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to be here, and you've built an amazing place here. It's just when you drive up, it's impressive. So
thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Thanks for coming out.
I'm happy I'm here.
All right.
Excellent.
Next up is Tasha Dickerson. She's new to Shelby's Farm Group, but not new to growing. Many will relate to her story, her desire to get into farming, and her practical thinking about how she needs to approach this passion and journey. Enjoy my conversation with Tasha.
So Tasha, where are you from?
I am from Maryland. I've lived in various cities within Maryland, but I'll just say Southern Maryland. So right now we reside in Clinton.
Okay. And so what is your background?
Oh, wow. Okay. If we're talking agriculture,
You can, in general,
what do I do? Okay. In my day job, I work in cloud technology. So I'm a business development manager for Amazon Web Services.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. And so what's the interest in farming?
Oh, goodness.
Hey, it's Jen, your Agri-Tourist podcast host. I need to interrupt this podcast for a few seconds. I always want to support the people I interview. So if you're planning on visiting the Berkshires this summer and fall season, Dory Schofield, owner of Berkshire Farm Sanctuary and Save a Pet on Long Island, and myself have partnered up to help her create an Agra destination at her sanctuary. We are starting small with 5 exciting chocolate cocktail hours for all of you chocolate lovers out there. You'll start with a chocolate mocktail, or a cocktail, and indulge in some delicious charcuterie, plant-based of course. Then you will be guided through a chocolate experience and learn how chocolate is made from bean to bar. Savor the tastes of real chocolate from all around the world and depart the farmhouse with some of your favorite chocolate bars in hand. Proceeds support all of Dory's rescued animals at the sanctuary. Remember, there are only 5 dates starting Saturday, July 5th, and once they're booked, that's it. So visit berkshirefarmsanctuary.org or heartbeatfarms.com to register now. Thank you for listening, and I will hand you back over to the podcast.
I guess at my heart, I've always been that person that wanted to be outdoors. How I ended up indoors, I don't know. I guess life just takes you on a journey.
Yes.
Right. It does. Right.
It happens.
It just happens. But as a kid, I was always the one that wanted to be outside, playing in the soil, in nature, just loved it. And as a youth, I took a lot of like, I guess, ag type jobs, right? I worked at a commercial greenhouse when I was in high school, kind of like a seasonal job that you do in the spring on your breaks and summer, that sort of thing. And then to pay my way through college, I worked at a big box store. I was their greenhouse manager and then garden center manager. And I did that for about 4.5, 5 years or so.
Wow.
And paid my way through college. But after college, I went into the workforce and ended up in more of a corporate type of environment.
Okay.
But my heart always wanted to be outside.
So how are you satisfying that heart right now?
So I've always gardened. I've been at my home property now for about 23 years. And I've always had a garden, and it's grown. Like, I may have grown a few things on my deck and then a few things in pots. And then I had raised beds, and then I ended up growing in ground, and it just expanded, and the garden turned into a farm.
Okay. So tell me about, because you said you used the term with me before, urban farm.
Yeah.
So how are you defining that?
So it's really I'm in a residential area, so this is a residential home community. We don't have an HOA or anything, and our property sizes are probably a little bit larger than what is typical in the area. It's more than the 1/4 acre home site that you would normally find. So we're on a little bit shy of maybe 3/4 of an acre.
Okay.
And so we're growing in a residential area. It's not the typical farmland. We don't have animals per se, but we're growing vegetables. We have a small orchard, I guess, 9 fruit trees, and some berry bushes.
That's good.
And
What kind of fruit?
So we have apples. I think we have 3 apple trees, 2 peach.
Okay.
Stone fruit, like, plums, cherries, and then we have pears. Yep.
Nice. That's a good diversity. That's a lot. Because every vegetable and fruit has its own, you need to learn about each one and the issues that you can encounter for each one. So it's not easy when you have such diversity.
You're absolutely right. And that is a definite difference between like gardening and farming, I'm finding, because again, we're beginning farmers. So learning a lot about the farming lifestyle that I think I want so desperately,
it's a
right?
good way to test it out, right?
Yeah. So growing a lot of different things, but it's really our lifestyle. Like we eat from our garden. That's just what we've done for the 20 plus years I've lived the property, whatever we were growing, how much or how small it was, we were just consuming that and then expanding it over time. I love to can, so I can all of our sauces, and we typically don't have to buy certain things. We've kind of grown those particular things so that we don't have to purchase them.
Okay.
Pickles and that sort of thing, right? And
are you thinking of actually selling some of these products?
Yeah. So
tell me about that.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. I want to venture into more of a value added product business, I guess. And so we're kind of exploring that.
Okay.
And most of these recipes are just things that I've adapted over time that our family love, and I think other families would love it too.
Excellent. Do you envision a bigger farm property in the future? After
yes,
after the indoor career,
has absolutely. And that's one of the great things about actually having this career is that it will probably help to afford that property, right? I think a lot of farmers do struggle a little bit with the land access because the income just isn't there. And I know it's a hard business. I absolutely know it, but it's a passion too. So hopefully we will have that property in our future.
I'm excited for you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Do you have a favorite vegetable and a favorite fruit that you want to share with us?
I don't know if it's my favorite because it's easy or not. It's definitely not easy, but I really get right. It's not easy, but I get great joy out of growing broccoli. Like when the broccoli is successful,
not easy to grow.
It's not, and so I think that's what it is. It's kind of like it's a challenge, and then when you get the head of broccoli,
yes,
you're just
the whole head.
Right? It's not just these little sprouts, like a full head.
It always happened at our farm. We were never successful with broccoli.
Really? And I've had those times, and it really comes down to like timing and all those things. And so last year we were really successful with it, and I was just like, yes, I did that. Yes.
And what about fruit?
And fruit. Unfortunately, we don't really get to harvest a lot of fruit from our trees just yet. They're probably within like the 4 or 5 year age, and we have a ton of squirrels. That's a whole nother conversation. But I really love our blueberries, and blueberries are coming in season now. And so I ate the first one just to test it to see how ripe it was. And it was pretty sweet, but it needed maybe a couple more days, but it was really good. And they're sizable this year. So I love the blueberries, and they're really hands off. It's kind of like the type of thing you plant it. You do have to, fertilize and cover it maybe to keep the birds away, but it's really hands off. So.
Perennial fruits and veggies are great.
I know. Yeah, like the asparagus. It's just wonderful, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But that broccoli, we never had success with that. Broccoli rabe we did, but not broccoli.
Really. And I'm the opposite. Like broccoli rabe, it just goes right to flower for me. I think it's, again, the timing. I think I wait until it gets a little bit too warm.
You're absolutely right.
I don't know.
But,
so, yeah.
Well, that is wonderful. I thank you for sharing all this. And tell me, what brought you here?
Okay. So this is it just happened, right? So I actually was invited to be a panelist at another Woman in Agriculture event at Martha's Table about a month ago. And I was on the panel with 4 other amazing women. And one of them, we all kind of kept in touch. And then one of them told me about this event. We were going to meet up at her farm today, but she was ill, so she wasn't able to come. But she told me about the event. So I bought my ticket to come. And then unfortunately, she was sick. But I was like, I still want to go, and I'll go for the both of us. So I'm here. I'm excited. I'm glad that I came, and I'll share the wonderful information I got from this with her as well. But
absolutely.
Yeah. So
absolutely. And I'm grateful you came. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah. Pleasure meeting you as well.
Next, I met with Micah Palmer, who grew up in farming and now is part of her husband's hay and straw business. One thing with farming is we sometimes just say that someone grows hay, but did you ever stop to think about what that really means? Who the farmer is serving, how they grow, how they harvest, how they go to market with their hay? It's way more intricate than we sometimes make it out to be. Enjoy my conversation with Micah.
So Micah, tell me about your background.
So I actually grew up in just a normal city type town, suburban life. Locally. So I was in, Southern Maryland, but in Waldorf. And I wasn't involved in anything farm related until my husband is actually a farmer. And so that's when I got introduced to all of it.
What was your background? Like what interested you?
I was just living my life just like as a city, like just sports and just like having everything so close by, everything just being there in that sense.
Okay. So then what happened?
Well, then we're in high school. So he's working at this farm, as a farm hand. And then he goes and studies agriculture. And so then he realizes, he's like, wait, I kind of want to start my own hay business. And so then he, my husband, his last name is Palmer. And so he made the business Palmer Farms, LLC. Okay. And so we have hay and straw. And so it's difficult to buy land. And so we actually lease all of our acres. So we have about 50-ish acres of hay and straw.
And is that on this property?
So we have some here. So there's about like 10-ish here. Okay. Down the road, we have another 10. And then at where the barn is, we have like 30 or so.
Wow.
So it's kind of all over. Okay. And so you have to move all your equipment if you're off, because he keeps it in the barn. Anything that's around the barn, it's easy. Okay. Well, then you have to drive it up these small roads. Yeah. Which is difficult.
Yeah. I came here through some of these small roads. So I don't know much about the hay business. And I know you're not the doing the business, but who do you sell to? Like who is your customer?
So we'll start with just the basics of hay and straw. So predominantly hay is for animals to eat, and the straw think of it as what they want to lay in. Okay. So you can have straw for, anyone who is in the city. Or if you're in the suburban life or even in the country and you want to, you have an area that's really, really muddy and you want to maybe have some grass, you'll just put it over top of that, those seeds.
I used to use it for my farm.
Yeah.
Yep. We used to put it down in the winter, especially on the garlic and, right. To cover. If we didn't have a cover crop, we would use it.
Yeah, it's perfect. Okay. And for your gardens. So for those people, we actually have it in our garden right now. Yep. And it just creates that barrier, keeps kind of that moisture in. Where in terms of hay, you want that for your livestock. So like your cows, your horses, that kind of thing.
Okay. So that sounds like a business that's very needed.
Oh yeah, around here we have so many people who have horses around here. We actually found that our straw is a hot commodity, and so we had to rotate our crops for one of the fields wasn't doing too great. So we're like, okay, let's go ahead and put some straw down on this one. And we're like, well, that'll actually work out because people have been wanting that more. Not that they don't want the hay, but we're like, well, we kind of have to. Kind of talking about those seasons out in the book area.
So when I went out, you were talking about maple syrup. Okay, what was that? What did I overhear?
So my family is from upstate New York.
Where?
And so
where in New York?
We are an hour from Montreal.
Okay, so
and
you're upstate New York.
Yes.
Okay.
So think of Lake Placid area.
Okay.
And so there's this little town called, it's in the All Soluble Forks, but it's in Keysville, New York. And so my great uncle and my great aunt, they opened up a vineyard.
Oh, nice.
And so they have a vineyard there. It's called Highland Vineyards. And they also, because of where you're at, they also have maple trees. And so they kind of integrate that into one, selling maple syrup, and then also putting that maple syrup into their wine. It's delicious.
That is interesting.
It's awesome. And the view is amazing because you're able to see, they're sitting on top of this hill and you can just see the water. It's beautiful.
And what was the name of that? Just so we can, do you know the name of the vineyard?
Yeah, it's Highlands Vineyard. And so it's actually, they're on the road. It's called Highlands.
Very nice.
So, yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. And so your husband is kind of the main farmer do you contribute to the business? In what way?
Yeah. So he, oftentimes he's taught me how to drive the tractors. So he has
That's a skill.
It is when you don't know how to do stick shift.
It's not easy. People think it's easy. It's not easy.
He has to give me a quick little tractors for dummies every season. I'm like, wait, how do we do this again? So, so he taught me how to, when you have hay and straw, it's pretty much the same process. And so he cuts it. And then you obviously I like to use the basics of the basics. So you have to flip the hay. So you just have to flick it. And so you use this thing that's called a tedder. And it's going to attach the back on the PTO shaft, and you just tedder all of it. And then you have to go through, you want it to be nice and dry. You don't want to have moisture because then you can have fires in your barn. And so I help with that process. I've raked before. I'm not great at raking. It is not straight. And he's like, oh, this is very difficult when I go to bale, Micah. So the only things I don't do is bale
that's
and
an
cut
art
it.
too. I mean, people don't, there's so many components to every aspect of farming. Like we were just talking about the diversity of vegetables and how every vegetable and fruit has its own, you need to know the protocol and you need to know the diseases and you need to know the bugs that impact it and the seasonal pieces of it. And hay is the same thing. I mean, there's and just harvesting it and baling it. Because when we would get our bales, there's these big, neatly tied bales that we could never open, right?
You're like, wait, where's my knife?
But that is a whole process in itself.
And it's amazing how much it's transformed since he started in 2019. We were walking in the fields and walking and grabbing them by our hands and putting them onto any of the trailers that we have, all friends. We're not we have. That's why I cook for everyone. It's that's my way of repaying them. It's all of us are friends and we kind of have a time. But now we have a wagon, not a stack wagon, but a wagon that we literally get on the back of and we stack it. And it comes right from the baler onto the back, which is glorious. Still a lot of work, but I was pregnant last year, so it was perfect. I didn't even have to. I could just watch. I'm like, you guys are doing a great job.
You have a little one now, right?
Yeah.
And how old now?
She's 6 months.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
That creates a whole different world.
Oh, yes, I know.
Yes, my youngest is graduating high school. So it's like you turn around and it goes by. When your mom or dad would say it's going to go by fast, they're right. It does go by fast. So savor every moment. And I'm sure they'll be on the farm soon helping out. My kids loved it and they talk about it. They had their moments, but they do talk about their time on the farm and they really enjoyed it.
I think it's useful skills, even if because we can't determine what our children are going to do or anyone around us is going to do, but it provides you with exposure.
Yes.
And I think that is the greatest gift to anything is having exposure. And then you're able to decide what you want to do.
Exactly.
And it's a hardworking thing.
Absolutely. Well, it was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you.
Pleasure's here too.
You did great.
Thank you so much. Oh.
Amy Crone is my next interview. Among the many things that Amy does, Amy is helping to feed Americans. When she told me about some of the programs and the technology that she created to support those programs, I was taken aback. The need for what she is doing and the impact of what she is doing is extraordinary. Amy is another agricultural powerhouse. Enjoy my conversation with Amy.
So, Amy, tell me about your background. Where are you from, and what do you do?
Mm-hmm. I grew up in Maryland. I was a suburban kid. Sorry about
That's
that.
okay.
So
born and raised in Maryland.
Yep, born and raised. My family's from New England originally, and then my parents kind of traveled around and ended up in Maryland for work.
Where in New England?
They're the outside Boston area.
Oh, okay, excellent. Yeah. Any particular town? I'm just
Braintree,
curious.
Mass.
Yep, know it very well. Okay.
Yep, my grandmother used to say, go pack the car. She had a very thick Massachusetts accent.
I have friends, and they know who they are, who, yes, I always make fun of. So they came down here, and how did they come here?
For a job.
Oh, for a job.
Yep.
Okay.
So they both worked for the same company, and there was a posting outside of Baltimore, and they decided to try it. My dad always wanted to have boats, and so I grew up on the Chesapeake, did a lot of fishing with my dad, and I've been a Maryland girl.
So farming. How did you find farming, or how did it find you?
It's been a long and winding path, honestly. But I remember my first exposure to any type of agriculture per se was my aunt's garden. So she lived in New Hampshire, and she had this huge garden, and they'd have chickens and kind of the whole nine yards. They, I wouldn't call them homesteaders, but kind of traditional New Englanders in the sense that in the summer they ate mostly from their garden and didn't really bring in a lot of outside products.
Which is good.
So that was a great memory for me. And then actually I went off to college in upstate New York, and there was
Where was that?
In Ithaca.
Okay.
So there was a fantastic farmer's market there. And so that's when I started
What college did you?
Cornell.
Oh, you did go to Cornell. Okay, excellent.
Yep. So got to learn more about food there and organic food and kind of different means of production, and started learning there. And then I worked actually in international development for a number of years after college, and that's what I got my graduate degree in.
Okay.
And so all the while kind of working in farmers markets as a side job and kind of food adjacent, was very interested in food. I'm not a huge fan of the term, but would definitely be called a foodie. Like to explore restaurants and find new things to try and eat.
Okay.
And lived in DC for about a decade while I was finishing my graduate degree working in international development. And then I ended up, we were starting our family, and it was kind of the point in my professional career where I needed to move abroad for a significant amount of time or make a different path. So there was an opening at the Maryland Department of Agriculture, and I took that role, and it was to coordinate the farmers market nutrition program across the state.
Nice.
So since then, I've been working in food access. I started a nonprofit several years ago called the Maryland Farmers Market Association, which did a matching program across the state, and which now is actually under SMATIC's purview. So started that, and then have been working essentially in the nonprofit and grants world ever since, and currently manage a team of about 10 spread across the country to help farmers and markets accept federal nutrition benefits programs.
So food access, tough. Just give me your perspective right now on what's happening. Because obviously, I've been interviewing a lot of people about this topic, and I've been trying to figure out personally, how can I use my skills to help, and just give me your perspective. I know that's a loaded question, but just convey what you want to convey about just what you're seeing and the hardships out there and what's happening to help.
It's very hard and very expensive for people to eat well in our country right now. Unfortunately, one of the best means for folks that have lower incomes to access fresh food is through federal nutrition benefits programs. So the ones that I work with in particular are SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and WIC, the Women, Infants, and Children Program. And a huge aspect of those programs is getting food to those who need it. So SNAP in particular is over 120 billion with a B dollars every year. And so what our work does is try and shift some of that away from the big box stores where you're getting more processed foods, ingredients that are less healthful for you, to foods raised and grown by local farmers. So that's what we do. And we've developed a technology to be able to accept those benefits on a smart device.
Really?
So we enroll farmers, and currently the USDA has a grant program that helps farmers be able to, we provide them with technical assistance to become authorized, because that's a process in and of itself. You have to be approved.
Now, is this just for Maryland?
No,
or
it's
this
across the country.
Because I know when I had my farm, we joined the farmers market nutrition program. I had to go through training, and there was a whole process. It was difficult.
Yes. And so we help the farmers with that process for SNAP in particular, because SNAP is a nationwide program. So we actually can submit the application on their behalf.
So you created a tool for this?
And then a whole
That's amazing.
organization.
And how do we find you?
It's marketlink.org.
That is terrific.
So yeah. And so we've actually just formed a new nonprofit to kind of broaden the mission. So that new one is called the Farmers Food Assistance Bureau. So that's FAB.
Okay.
FAB.
I like that.
Yep. FabBureau.org. So.
Okay. Excellent. So that's amazing. I want to go on there and see what, because I think it's so needed, because it was such a barrier to entry. Now, granted, this was a few years ago for me, but I don't know how it's evolved in New York specifically, but I just felt like it was I was like, God, I'm doing all this work.
For not much money.
But most people would probably not have the time or, because I was more the business, I farmed, but I was more the business end. So I was doing all this. My farmer friend, who was my partner, she would have never had the time to do it. Not because she didn't want to.
Right. Because it's a big effort and it takes a lot of time.
Huge.
And so we take that burden, hopefully, off of the farmers' back, and then also help farmers markets become authorized too. So.
That's terrific. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. I'm so excited to go on and see and spread the word about this. So thank you. Anything else you want to share about what you're doing?
I would just say, and so as part of that whole journey, as you've heard, I've kind of worked in all the different parts of the food system. So I got to the point where I said, I want to grow something ourselves or farm something ourselves. Well, to be clear, I knew I didn't want to grow vegetables or milk anything. And I mean, like,
that's okay. We know what our strengths are.
Exactly. It is. Those are super labor intensive. And at the point at which I would be starting that, it was not the wisest point in my life. Had 2 kids, and it just wasn't feasible. So we were fortunate to find this property in Anne Arundel County, and now we grow hops. And
that's a whole different.
Yeah. So we grow hops and do beef, lamb, and eggs. And then we have a little bit of horse boarding, but essentially, and I always forget, I said lamb, so we have sheep as well. But we very intentionally picked things on the farm that we could manage in addition to our day jobs.
So I have to ask, the hops, why hops, and what are you doing with your hops?
So the long-term plan is to have a small on-farm brewery.
Nice.
It's taken with COVID. It's becoming a very long-term plan, or became, I should say, when that was kind of the original vision for the property, which has been far delayed at this point, but still in the works. So currently we homebrew with it, and then we are hopeful this fall to be able to do a fresh hop in partnership with a local brewery. So that is a beer in which, so for folks that might not be familiar with hops in general, across the industry, they're harvested and then they're pelletized.
Yes,
so
I learned this through a podcast, actually. I never knew anything about that.
Yeah, so that they can be kept for a much longer period of time, since they're essentially the flower of the hop vine. So as you can imagine, that doesn't last very long. So that's the general industry-wide practice, but there is kind of hearkening back to the days of old, something called a fresh hop beer, where you basically harvest and then immediately brew it. So it's a very, as you can imagine, vegetal and grassy notes. You still get the hop flavors, but it's a bit of a different vibe. So
and that's what
we're hoping to do this fall with a brewery.
That's terrific.
Yep.
Well, I'm excited to hear about. Is there a name to?
Oh yes, I should have said that from the get-go.
No, that's okay.
Our farm is Hop Scratch Farm.
Excellent.
And so we started with hops, obviously, and chickens were some of our first animals. So Hop Scratch.
Excellent. I love it. Well, it was a pleasure meeting you.
You
Thank you so much. I'm excited to put this out there. You're doing amazing stuff.
Thank
you so much.
I hope our Agri-Tourist podcast prompts you to think more about where your food comes from, whether it be your vegetables, fruits, meats, and even those sweet treats. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with someone you think may truly benefit from or be inspired by it. Visit us at agri-tourist.com. Until next time. So I was recently listening to one of the Grounded in Maine podcasts produced by Amy Fagan. The podcast is an open conversation about being mindful about how we show up in the world. It's focused on sustainability and how sustainability impacts every part of our life. What are some of the most important takeaways that people will get from your podcast?
One of the things that I hope that people will take away from the podcast is encouragement. Like, I want them to not feel like you have to spend thousands of dollars to be part of the solution, because, there are a lot of sustainable, things that say sustainability or sustainable, like solar panels or organic cotton and stuff like that. Like, some things are just more expensive because they have that tagline, that phrase or whatever. But there are so many ways that you can be sustainable. You just have to be a little bit creative. And so I'm putting out all these ideas that what people are doing, just to put the thought out there that we can all be part of it without going broke.
So how can people find your podcast?
My podcast is wherever podcasts are found. It is just called Grounded in Maine. I also have my Instagram is where I am most active, and the Instagram handle is Grounded in Maine Podcasts.